So, Mark, a few years back, I had a pipe burst in front of my house, right in the front yard. And I had worked in a warranty type of deal with a plumbing company. And this plumbing company said, sure, we'll send somebody out. So the next day they sent somebody out. And the first plumber came to my house and he said, yep, you got a leak. And I was like, okay, so what do we do? He goes, well, so they're going to send somebody else out. There's going to be a locator. And I was like, well, I can locate it. I see where the water's pumping out of the ground. It's within
geyser?
10, 12 feet of here somewhere, And so sure enough, 2 days later now, okay, they send the second plumber out. And he comes out and literally he has the flags. And I know you've seen it. You've probably done it too. And I actually did it because I think it's kind of cool. But he's throwing the flags and they're like landing, and they're sticking in the ground. And so he's like marking the spot now. And I'm like, okay, so, what are you going to do? He goes, well, I need to fill out my report, and then they'll send somebody over to fix it. And I was like, you're a plumber, right? And he goes, yeah. I said, what do you do? He goes, oh, I'm a locator. I'm like, that's silly.
It sounds like a government operation.
I said, what are you guys doing? I said, I'm literally walking in and out of my house with the T, to turn off the water. I have 7 people in my house, and every time someone has to go to the toilet, and here I am walking outside to turn the water off and on. And then, of course, 5 o'clock in the morning, people got to get up. They got to go to school. They got to shower. And then, one of my daughters gets home late from work, so now she said, Dad. I was like, yeah, I know. It's only 1. Let me go and turn the water on. It was horrible for those 4 or 5 days. So after the second guy came, I just said, you know what, that's it. I'm not going to deal with this company anymore. I ended my business relationship with them, and I started doing some research, and I found Shafer. I called them that morning. They got there a little while after 12 noon, maybe 12:15 or so. They showed up. 4 hours after they showed up, it was fixed.
Oh my gosh!
It was that quick, and I was like, I don't understand what all this other hassle was,
right?
But it really put me out. And the problem with it was as a real estate broker with 80 plus agents, I had been referring this company out to our clients, and I was mad at myself. I was just beside myself to have to work with knowing that I had maybe done this to other people, and of course you never know until the pressure's on or the pressure's
off.
Got a geyser in your front yard, So with that situation, I really am excited to talk and introduce our next guest. Chase is the president and CEO of Shafer Services. He's a seasoned technician who knows the ins and outs of identifying and implementing plumbing, heating, and cooling solutions. Chase grew up in San Antonio as a graduate of Alamo Heights High School. He holds a Bachelor of Business Administration from TCU, Texas Christian University, along with a Master's of Business Administration from St. Mary's University. Please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Chase Anderson.
Welcome, Chase.
Thanks,
Good to have you in the studio, man.
Yeah. So, Chase, we're going to want to educate our listeners today on their plumbing, heating, and AC systems. So what should a homeowner do to maintain their plumbing system?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of homeowners don't think about maintenance when they're thinking about plumbing. It's kind of you use it and you almost forget that it's there.
Yeah.
But in our homes, we have a lot of different parts and pieces and components that make up what we call a plumbing system. And so, when it comes to maintenance, regular maintenance, there's 2 major pieces of equipment that we look at and recommend that our customers focus on, and that's their water heater, right? Which is an awfully nice thing to have hot water, and their water softener. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has a water softener, but in San Antonio, with the water that we have here, which is pretty hard, pretty mineral rich, lots of times that's a good idea to help keep your plumbing system operating how it should in your house. So on the water heater side, a tanked water heater should be flushed on an annual basis, right? Especially if you don't have a water softener, right? All of those minerals that are being heated and then cooling down and heated and cooling down again, that stuff builds up in your tank, in your water heater tank, and can really reduce the capacity of that water heater and the efficiency of that water heater if it's not flushed on a regular basis.
And my understanding, too, is when you get a mineral buildup in there, it can start making popping noises, too.
It can. There's a whole array of different things that can happen if you have your tank start filling up with stuff other than water.
Right.
It's like the boiler on A Christmas Story, where the dad comes downstairs. It's always making those noises. It sounds like a monster.
It's like, what's that popping noise?
Yeah, I've had that growing up, man. Where it was horrible. It was scary.
The crazy thing is, a lot of people think that's just normal. Right?
Oh, that's not supposed to happen.
We ask
it's supposed to pop.
Yeah, we're asking customers like, how's everything working? Oh, my water heater's good. It's popping along over there.
It's like popping
no,
along.
that's not what's supposed to happen, right? So
wow.
That's really a best practice on the water heater side is to flush that thing on an annual basis. And there is on all water heaters there is basically a valve at the bottom that you can hook up a hose to and run that outside and flush that stuff out. But one thing that we do for our customers, we actually that valve they use that comes standard from the factory is about as big as your pinky. So you can imagine it's pretty hard to get any significant buildup out. So we use a full port ball valve. We install that for our customers on our water heaters, which gives close to an inch in diameter to really allow some of that stuff to flow out.
And you do that on installation of the water heater?
We do, yeah.
Okay. That's perfect, because that actually came up with ours. It was like, well, we have to put in this expander or whatever he called it to expand it so that you can get more of that stuff out of there. And even then, you can't guarantee that all the stuff's because it's been sitting for a little bit longer than a year. I'm just going to be honest.
Right.
But anyway, that's good to know. That's a really cool service.
That's just something that we do. Anytime someone buys a new water heater, we think it's the right thing to do, so we do it for them.
Absolutely.
So.
And there's a lot of people that are like to do stuff themselves, but that could be kind of hazardous too if they're don't really know what they're doing, right? We want them to be cautious.
I definitely. Our goal is to educate people, right? That's why I'm here today, and I definitely want people to be able to save as much money as they can and take care of the stuff at their house that they're able to do safely. To your point, Gasper. But it's a relatively straightforward process, but lots of times these water heaters are located in attics or in really tight spaces.
That's where mine's at. It's in an attic.
Yeah, and so running a hose appropriately and not having to make it go uphill to get it out to where it needs to go sometimes is tricky. And from a physical standpoint, we definitely don't want to put anybody in a position where they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, they flood their bedroom down below.
Exactly.
Or that, exactly, yeah.
So we've talked about plumbing. What about HVAC, heating and AC?
Yeah, that's another service that we provide. And, we use our HVAC systems hard in San Antonio, right? In the summertime when it's 105 degrees, those things are working around the clock. And so, it's, again, this stuff is pretty straightforward, but I do want to remind everybody that the filter for your system is a big deal, right? It seems like something, I'll get around to it maybe next month or the month after. But if your filter gets dirty, it increases the restriction of airflow through your indoor unit, whether it be your furnace or your air handler, and that can cause a lot of damage, put more strain on the motor, on all the parts and pieces. And so, when you buy your first house, they say, make sure to change your air filter. Well, it's a big deal, right? And that really makes a big difference in how that system operates. The other thing that we really recommend is cleaning your outdoor coil, your condensing coil. Lots of times, I don't know if you guys seen it at your houses, but when you're mowing the yard and that thing's on, it's going to suck those grass blades right up onto the fins of that coil, or you might have vines growing up on it, or whatever it might be. The airflow through that outdoor unit also has a major effect on the efficiency of the equipment and how much strain is being put on the equipment. So rinsing that coil at least on an annual basis is really important. There's some specific steps that need to be done when you do that to make sure you're doing it properly and not putting yourself at risk of electrical shock, because there is electricity, high voltage going to that unit. So, if you know how to do that, great. If you don't, please reach out to a licensed HVAC contractor.
I'm actually surprised that it's. You wouldn't use a power washer, I'm guessing, because that could affect the fins, right?
Correct.
So you're talking about just a garden hose on a light spray kind of a thing?
That's right. Just a garden hose, light spray. Lots of times, we use some cleaning products to kind of break loose if there's any hard dirt.
Oxidation. And
yeah.
things like that. Yeah.
But the other thing to keep in mind too is lots of times, well, not lots of times, it's much better to rinse it from the inside out as opposed to outside in.
Oh, there we go.
And so if you're just get the water hose and start spraying from the outside, lots of times you're actually compacting that dirt and debris and making the problem worse.
Yeah, because it'll dig in between those fins.
That's right.
Wow, that's probably why that little breaker is out there by the box. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, shut that bad boy off.
Shut it off.
Definitely shut it off before you start
spray it out.
Using water around the unit for sure.
Makes sense now. Makes sense. That's good. Yeah. Very good points.
Yeah.
You're actually probably saving me a finger or two today. So what should home buyers do before they purchase a home to ensure that their plumbing and HVAC systems are working correctly?
Yeah, this is a question that we get a lot.
Yeah.
And Gasper, I know you guys that the home market is crazy right now. A lot of people buying houses, selling houses, and we want to make sure that we set them up for success and avoid any potential really costly items, a month or two after they move in. Mm-hmm. And so from a plumbing standpoint, I would kind of revert back to what I said a little bit earlier. Make sure to take a look at the existing water heater. See if there is a softener and if it's working. You might have to reach out to a licensed plumber to check those pieces of equipment and again, make sure that they're working properly. A big thing that we like to say is age and condition, right? It's not one or the other, it's both. Typically, a water heater in this market is going to last 8 to 12 years. Mm-hmm. But if there has been no water softener and it hasn't ever been flushed, we might be leaning more on the 8-year side of things. And the same thing goes on the air conditioning side. Again, 10 to 15 years is kind of the average life expectancy in this hot weather market that we're in. But if that unit has been really well cared for, cleaned, and maintained on an annual basis by a licensed contractor, we might be pushing further down the line than that. But if it's the other side of things, it might have a shorter lifespan. And it's important to take a look at that.
When would somebody call you out to look at that? I'm guessing after they bought the home already and maybe they just want to make sure everything's copacetic. Because they get a home inspection done. I don't even know if the home inspector checks the water heater. The amperage and so forth with the core or whatever. I don't really know if they're doing that. But when would they call you? Is it mainly after?
Well, normally what we'll do is the home inspector will identify a discrepancy of some sort. With the HVAC system or the water heater. Mm-hmm. And then it would be on the buyer again to say, okay, well, we may or may not have a problem because the inspector's not a licensed plumber or a licensed electrician. So we call a specialist out, and the specialist can come out and actually determine whether that was or was not actually an issue. So we try and do it normally within the option period time frame.
Okay.
That's the safest position to place your client in. Trying to do it outside, you could do it outside the option period, you could, but it doesn't give you a whole lot of flexibility to maneuver and negotiate later if you have to.
And if somebody needs if somebody needs a water heater installed, do you like an average price, like a 50-gallon water heater that might be, in a fairly easy, not an attic space necessarily, but in a common place, how much are they looking at to replace that on average?
This day and age with prices going up as they've been, which is we're all dealing with, but somewhere anywhere between probably the $1,800 to $3,000 range, just depending again on location, which water heater they selected for their home, things like that.
Yeah, so that is a significant expense when you first go in. So okay, cool.
And I see a lot more people actually choosing to go tankless, and that seems to be more popular nowadays. What is the time range that they last versus like just a regular water heater?
A tankless, you mean?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you the classic answer of it depends.
Yeah. It depends.
Right? And really it depends, again, on kind of some of the stuff that we've talked about already. How good of a job are we doing at maintaining that piece of equipment? They can last a long time. There's stats that show them lasting 20 years.
Wow.
But we really recommend that if you do have a tankless, you also have a softener, because that water is being, it's basically flowing through a heat exchanger, a bunch of little micro tubes, and heating that water up really fast. So it's going from cold to hot almost instantaneously. because those tubes are so small, if any of that mineral builds up in there, it can cause some really substantial issues.
Wow.
So we got to make sure that we have quality soft water flowing through a tankless heater.
Yeah. Well, I told my story about how we got started in our business relationship here, and what is it that Shafer does? Well, because and this can actually spread across any kind of field of business, but there's obviously things that you guys are doing to maintain your quality. So,
Right.
so for our listeners out there, what tips would you give them to look for in hiring a quality contractor?
It's a good question. There's, I'm so happy to say there's a lot of competitors out there, right? It keeps us on our toes, and there's a lot of people that do a good job in what we do. But I would recommend, if someone were looking to, hire a plumbing or HVAC contractor, to do your diligence, right? Look at how long they've been in business. That's a pretty telltale sign of.
So if it's less than 100 years, maybe they should look elsewhere.
Yeah, right. If it's less than 100 years, I would wipe them off the slate. No, I'm
That's
kidding.
funny.
We're kind of a unique duck in that sense. But years in business, if they've been around, I would say 10 plus years, that's a good sign that they're taking care of their customers in the right way. Also look at their Google reviews.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing that we as consumers have access to at this day and age. And it's also a great telltale sign. The last thing I would say is, once you do select to have someone come out and visit your house, if you've got a geyser in your front yard or your air conditioning's not working, whatever it is, be on the lookout for that professional, that service professional, to provide you with options, right? I'm a huge believer that a consumer should never be backed in a corner on, okay, you've got this issue that you don't know how to handle, and this is what you have to do, and this is the money you have to spend. We are in the business of providing options and educating our customers, and I really feel that's an important thing to do for all of the companies within our industry. So I would be on the lookout for that as well.
Yes, that's great. That's great advice, and thank you so much. So, how do our listeners get a hold of Shafer Services?
Yeah, the easiest way to reach us is by phone. Mm-hmm. So 210-227-8358 is our direct line, and you can reach us whether you're a residential or commercial customer. We provide service on both sides of the business there. And then obviously online at shaferservices.com.
Awesome. Great. So thank you so much, Chase, for being with us.